You ever ask a simple question in a language class and get a weirdly intense reaction? It's funny how sometimes just one single word can crack open this huge hidden cultural debate. And that's exactly what we're going to dive into today, the Spanish verb to meet, and the absolute firestorm it kicked off. So it all started right here, a Reddit post from a language student in Barcelona. They asked a totally normal vocabulary question and got shot down. The teacher was so dismissive, it made the student feel like they were going crazy. And that feeling, that sense of being gaslit over a simple word choice, man, it sparked a massive conversation online. And that really is the question, isn't it? How can one simple, everyday word cause so much drama? What is it about meeting up in Spanish that pulls on these deeper threads of history, national pride, and identity across two entire continents? Well, let's get into it and find out. To really get the big picture, we've got to start small. We have to go right back to that initial moment, that one interaction in a Spanish language class in Barcelona. Okay, so here's what went down. The student asks the teacher, "Hey, can we also use the verb encontrar to mean meet up?" And the teacher's response was just a hard no. She insisted that quedar was the only word, the only one. The student was totally baffled, and, to make things even crazier, they later found that forbidden word, encontrar, right there in the school's own textbook. So this little classroom showdown, it actually points to a much bigger puzzle for anyone learning Spanish. So before we even get into the teacher's attitude, we have to look at the language itself, because trust me, it's not as simple as it looks. Think about it. In English, we use meet for everything, right? Nice to meet you. Let's meet for coffee. The two roads meet over there. But Spanish? Oh, it's way more precise. It takes that one single idea and splits it into a bunch of different verbs, and picking the wrong one can completely change what you're trying to say. All right, so let's crack this code. To really understand the whole controversy, we first have to get a handle on the tools. What are all these different verbs, and what do they actually mean? First up, you've got to conocer. This one is super specific. It's only for meeting someone for the very first time. Think introductions. That classic phrase, nice to meet you, that's where you use conocer. Simple as that. Next, we have quedar. Now, this is the one the teacher in Barcelona was so hung up on. It's all about making plans, arranging to meet up. Let's meet at 8 o'clock. It's really, really common in Spain, which totally explains why she was so insistent about it. Then there's encontrarse, the verb our student originally suggested. This one's kind of the multitasker of the group. It can mean you just bumped into someone by chance. I ran into my friend at the store. But, and this is key, it can also be used for a planned meeting. Pretty much just like quedar. And finally, there's reunirse. This one usually has a vibe of getting a whole group of people together. It's perfect for things like business meetings or a family reunion. In fact, it comes from the word reunión. So think reunion, and you've got it. It's all about gathering people for a reason. So, just to wrap that up, conocer is for the first hello, quedar is for making plans, and it's huge in Spain. Encontrarse is your flexible friend for both planned meetups and surprise run-ins, and reunirse is for when you're getting the whole gang together. Seeing them all laid out like this really makes the different shades of meaning pop, right? And get this, it doesn't even stop there. You've got other great options, like verse, which literally means to see each other, and the more casual juntarse, for just getting together. The main point here is that Spanish is this incredibly rich language with tons of options, not the single right way that teacher was pushing. Okay, so all of this grammar stuff is building to something way, way bigger. Because this whole debate, it was never really about the verbs. It's about something much deeper. History, power, and the complex relationship between Spain and Latin America. So when our Redditor Logical-Baker3559 shared their story, it was like they hit a nerve, a big one. The post just exploded. Hundreds of people, mostly from Latin America, jumped into the comments to say, "Me too, I've experienced that exact same kind of linguistic arrogance." And this comment from user Fadaikin21 really gets to the heart of the feeling. A lot of commenters felt that some speakers from Spain present their way of speaking not as one of many, but as the only correct, proper Spanish. And in doing so, they end up dismissing the way hundreds of millions of people speak across the Americas. This user made a fantastic point with an analogy that makes perfect sense to any English speaker. I mean, nobody would ever say that Scottish English is wrong just because it's different from American English, right? They're just different. And that's exactly the point many were making about the different national dialects of Spanish. They're all equally valid. And hey, this isn't just a Spanish thing. Another person pointed out that the very same tension exists with Portuguese. You've got the language from Portugal, the small country of origin, and then you have Brazilian Portuguese, spoken in a country that's like 20 times bigger. It's a classic story. There's actually a term for all this. It's called linguistic prescriptivism. It's basically the idea that there's one correct, pure way to use a language, and that everything else is just a mistake or a lesser version. And more often than not, that correct version is tied to the historical center of power, in this case, Spain. So, after that deep dive into grammar and colonial history, what does it all really mean? Let's circle back to the person who kicked this whole thing off and find out how their story actually ended.
So what do you think happened? Was our student just stuck with this teacher who made them feel awful about learning?
Thankfully, no. They decided to give the school one more shot, but with a different set of teachers. And the difference was like night and day. These new teachers were awesome, super informative, friendly, and they totally acknowledged how diverse the Spanish language is. And just like that, learning was fun again. And that's really the big takeaway here. This whole fight over quedar versus encontrarse, it was never really about vocabulary. It was a proxy war. It was about whether one version of a language gets to call all the shots, or if there's enough room for a whole world of different voices to be heard and respected as equals. So, it kind of makes you think, doesn't it? Language is absolutely packed with hidden history and power dynamics. What unspoken rules, what cultural biases are hiding in plain sight in the words we all use, or maybe even correct in others, every single day?